Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it is a privilege to follow the honourable member from Twickenham, and you can always tell when the Chamber is listening, the Chamber is quiet, and it was quiet throughout his speech. He delivered it with great aplomb. Now you can cue the noise, because the SNP are about to... Madam Deputy Speaker, in Scotland in 2014, we were told, in no uncertain terms, that we are a family of nations, and that we must keep this family together. The One Nation mantra was conspicuous by its absence. We don't want you to leave the Union, was the cry. We want you to lead the Union. And at the very point when we are suggesting we might just be about to take the UK at their word, those words are feeling more than a little hollow. To make those words a reality, Madam Deputy Speaker, discussion in the GMC is not enough. We must see real and tangible signs that our proposals will be agreed to. In my view, this is not one nation, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is, by definition, a collection of 4 nations. Some would say a family, albeit with very grown-up kids. And in any family, regard is always paid to the differences between the members of that family. You don't buy the same size shoes for the whole family. You certainly don't apply the same rules, and you certainly don't all follow the same path. But ultimately, you can, if you listen and respect the differences, remain a family. But even that is contingent on continuing and demonstrable mutual respect. In this so-called family of equal partners, as we were told, the UK must do more than merely talk with the nations within and say it is taking their views on board, as it repeatedly asserts. The UK must go beyond discussions and act on those views and demonstrate they understand the dynamics which underpin the stability of this union. That is how you keep a family together. You don't do so by simple binary prescription. What you can't do in any family is simply run the line that you voted to be in this family, so you now have to do what we all do. It wouldn't work for our own families, and it won't work for this one. This is a modern world we are living in, Madam Deputy Speaker. Small countries no longer fear the world, but see the opportunities. There are parliaments in each of our nations. Each is carving out a different path, just like any normal family. Each nation in this union has distinct cultures, political views, and indeed accents. And each of those nations delivered a different verdict on the 23rd of June. And for this family to remain intact, which I am certain is the intention of the members opposite, then allowances, specific allowances, must be made for these differences. And despite, I'm not going to give way because I'm conscious that I'm only the 3rd SNP MP to speak, and we've been in here for over 10 hours. And despite what seems to be the conventional wisdom on the benches opposite, there are indeed ways, Madam Deputy Speaker, to keep everybody happy here. The UK can leave the EU and Scotland can remain in the single market. Scotland can continue to benefit from the free movement of labour while the UK leaves the customs union, so that the UK has the ability to restrict EU migration to the nations that voted leave, all within the existing parameters of the UK. The proposals from Scotland can be found in this document, Scotland's Place in Europe. And I think it's crucial to mention at this stage that this document represents a massive compromise on the part of the SNP and the Scottish Government. We are willing to accept that Scotland and the UK as a whole leaves the EU. I would rather that weren't the case, but we will compromise. We are even willing to take independence off the table, at least in the short to medium term. Again, we're willing to compromise. But for that to happen, we need a similar scaled compromise from the UK Government. And that is how families should operate. If it can be done for Nissan, it can be done for Scotland. None of the options in here are impossible, but all require the will of the rest of the family to get behind them. That, I fear, Madam Deputy Speaker, will be their downfall. In short, our proposal states that Scotland maintains membership of the single market and continues to benefit from the pillar of free movement. Through membership, I've already explained why I'm not going to take any interventions. My mind hasn't changed. Whilst accommodating Scotland's wishes, in parallel, we set out a way for the rest of the UK to leave the single market, to also leave free movement and remove the entirety of the UK from the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice, which I've never had a problem with, but as I say, we are in compromise mode. We've heard today from the benches adjacent that the single market is apparently an internal EU market, and that leaving the EU de facto means you leave the single market. Well, that is just plain wrong. Members of the EEA are in the single market, but not members of the EU. Norway, Liechtenstein and Iceland have that status. Switzerland is a member of EFTA, but is neither in the EU or the EEA. Bespoke solutions are out there. It just requires the political will to pursue them. I often hear that different rules across the UK would weaken the Union. Opposite is true. If proper and substantive regard is not paid to these differences, then tensions on the relationships will come under strain. That much should be obvious to all. It is not the SNP, Madam Deputy Speaker, who put independence back on the table. This is a matter for this government. And if it is to be on the table, it will only be because this government doesn't listen. Scotland's distinct mandate and voice must be respected.